Good to go? All right, so good evening again. And let me begin by first saying thank you. Seeing the amount of persons that would have taken time out to join us here this evening is quite humbling. And at the same time, it is very reassuring. Reassuring because I know for us as a community, as a country, we all obviously care about our children. You know, there are conversations that are easy to have. Many conversations. We have conversations about cricket, which I know some of our population is at tonight. There's conversation about food. There's conversations about our culture. There's conversations about politics. But then there are conversations that make you feel a bit uncomfortable. And tonight, those are the conversations we're going to have. And as uncomfortable as you may feel at times, know that these are the conversations that we absolutely must have. Simply because somewhere in Antigua and Barbuda tonight, there is a child who is afraid to go home. And no, this is not a hypothetical situation. These are not hypothetical cases. These are real children. These are real stories. Good evening again. I am Senator Angelica O'Donoghue, and it is my privilege and also a tremendous responsibility to serve as your moderator for our very first National Child Protection Town Hall meeting, hosted by the Ministry of Social and Urban Transformation. The message tonight is quite simple. Every child in every community deserves safety. Not some children, not children from particular families, not children who make it to the news, but every single child. So very quickly, the purpose for tonight, we have obviously assembled a very packed and expertise type of panel tonight. We have persons from government, we have psychologists, we have social workers, we have law enforcement, we have persons from the education sector, healthcare, and the justice system. But there's another form of expertise in the room tonight, and that is you. Because you come from lived experiences, whether you're a parent like myself, whether you're a neighbor, whether you're an aunt, whether you're a godmother or godfather, we want to hear from you. So tonight is not going to be just the panel speaking to you. We intend for tonight to be as interactive as possible because we must all leave here asking the same question. What can I do to make sure tomorrow is better? Can we agree on that? Excellent. So let us go forward and meet in the panel. And I want to begin, of course, with the person in the very center, and that is the Honorable Rawdon Turner, Minister of Social and Urban Transformation. Minister Turner carries his ministerial responsibility with a level of vigor that we're also very excited about. But his portfolio places him directly within the intersection of social policy, community development, vulnerable populations, and the well-being of families across Antigua and Barbuda. Minister, tonight we will certainly not only going to be asking you about what are the challenges, but what can the government proactively do to strengthen the systems that are there to protect our children. Right next to him is Ms. Fiona Charles Richards. Ms. Richards, if you could just raise your hand so when the questions are being pivoted to you, they know who exactly they're speaking to. Ms. Fiona Charles Richards is the Director of Family and Social Services and a clinical psychologist. Ms. Charles Richards holds an undergraduate qualifications in psychology and sociology from the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus, and a master's degree in clinical psychology from UWI Mona. She therefore brings tonight not just her administrative perspective, but also the clinical understanding of trauma, behavior, and development within our young people across the country. Please help me in welcoming Ms. Fiona Charles Richards. We also have with us Ms. Corinne Norton. Corinne, I know everybody knows you, but still, raise your hand. Ms. Corinne Norton is a licensed master social worker and a certified employee assistance professional. Ms. Norton has worked in the human services field for more than 2 decades with professional experience in both the Caribbean and the United States. She also has served within the social work environment of our national hospital and brings extensive experience in counseling and human services. Thank you for joining us here tonight. Now, in case you were feeling like if you don't feel safe enough, don't worry. Because we do have representation from the law enforcement, and help me in welcoming Assistant Commissioner of Police, Lisbon Michael, and he's also the head of the Criminal Investigation Department. ACP Michael brings extensive policing and investigative experience to the discussion tonight, and importantly, the perspective of those who must respond when allegations of abuse, exploitation, and violence against our children enter the criminal justice system. Now, education, of course, where all of our children gather. And tonight we have with us Mr. Foster Roberts, the principal of Otto's Comprehensive School. Mr. Roberts brings the perspective of someone working directly within the environment where our children spend most of the portion of their lives. He has led the Otto's Comprehensive School community through a number of challenges involving student welfare and safety, including circumstances that have, from time to time, require the assistance of both social services and our law enforcement. Mr. Roberts, therefore, brings an extremely important voice to tonight's discussion. Please help me in welcoming Mr. Foster Roberts. Dr. Sequoia Servia. Hope I got your surname right. Representing the healthcare and hospital services, Dr. Sequoia is the social services manager at the Sir Lester Bird Medical Center. Our very own doctor has a professional background which includes clinical social work, mental health, substance abuse, trauma-informed care, and counseling across all age groups. She would bring the perspective of what happens when it comes to the consequences of our children being abused right here when she sees them in our healthcare system. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Sequoia. And completing this distinguished panel is prominent attorney at law and former chief magistrate and former senator, Mrs. Maureen Payne Hyman. Mrs. Payne Hyman brings decades of experience within Antigua and Barbuda's legal and justice systems. She was appointed chief magistrate in 2004 and has subsequently continued her contribution as an attorney, legal consultant, and public servant. She has also contributed to discussions surrounding young offenders, rehabilitation, and access to justice. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Maureen Payne Hyman. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our panel, and we're going to get straight into it. But before we do, I know tonight is going to be very emotional, and sometimes our responses or how we engage in discussions can come from an emotional space. So I ask that we just do 5 simple things tonight. That is, to have respect, to listen, to place no judgment, and please remember that we're also here to hear the stories of our children. And most importantly, be practical. We know that there are problems, and tonight, wherever and whenever it's possible, let us move away from this is wrong and he's to blame or she's to blame, but move towards what can we do about it. And of course, there are no scared cows, so no institution represented here tonight should be above the respectful scrutiny, whether it is government, police, schools, or healthcare, or social services, or even the justice system. Have your criticisms, but ensure that they are constructive. Can we all agree on those rules? Excellent. So I want to begin with Minister Turner, and I want to begin with one simple question. What is happening to our children? What are you seeing that perhaps the average Antiguan and Barbudan does not see? Can you tell us in your most candid way?
I would like to say good night to everyone. Good night to Mr. Osbert Frederick, the Speaker of the House. Good night to my colleagues here on the panel. Good night to our audience on ABS and those who are joining us via social media. We're here this evening for what I believe to be a very important town hall meeting. Over a year ago, I took on the responsibility as the Minister of Social and Urban Transformation. Before I was assigned to this ministry, I spent the majority of my adult career in the construction field. And though from time to time you would have seen in the newspapers and social media some of the abuse children would have faced in Antigua and Barbuda over the years, you see a headline and then you forget about it. You see a Facebook post, you see some discussions and you forget about it. As time passes, you forget about it. But with this responsibility as the Minister for Social Services, I am bombarded daily, weekly, and a monthly basis with issues that are affecting our children. Growing up, you would hear the phrase, adults use it, grandparents use it, we all use it. The village raised the child. The village is raising this child. I can sit here tonight and I can say, without fear of contradiction, that the village is now abusing our children. The village is no longer raising the child. For some reason, it has now become acceptable. Men, women have become emboldened with abusing children in Antigua and Barbuda. For every case you would see being discussed in the newspaper or on social media, I can guarantee you there are 5, 10, 15, 20 more cases that we hear nothing about. So I'm happy that persons turned up tonight for us to have an open and frank discussion about what our children are facing out there in Antigua and Barbuda. And I want to jump right in because I don't want to waste any time. I want you to understand. I want to speak about some of the cases that we've had to deal with within the ministry. I want to speak about the Family and Social Services division within the ministry. The fact that my director here sitting on my right and her counselors, they're tired, they're exhausted, they're beaten. They too are now reaching out and asking for counseling. The counselors are asking for counseling. When you're at the point where the counselors are asking for counseling, I think you have a crisis. And I say without fear that we're experiencing a crisis in Antigua and Barbuda. When a 9-year-old girl can complain that her private area is hurting, and she was violated by her stepfather, and she would be crying out to her mother, and our team would have taken her to the hospital, have her examined, and the doctor would have confirmed that her hymen is broken. And the mother would stand and say, "Not my man." She does not believe. The village is abusing the children. It took the mother more than 24 hours after much convincing for her to search her mind and to look at the signs that she was ignoring before to come to a conclusion that her daughter is being molested by her partner. And it goes beyond sexual abuse, it's also physical abuse. We have a report of a child whose arm swollen, bruised, and the doctor has confirmed that this child was physically abused. And you know, when you get a lick on your hand and it's broken and it starts to heal, that was the state at which that child was at. Abused and malnourished. we have situations where one situation jumped out to me and was a bit puzzling and hurtful. Two school children from Seatons, I'm going to call the name of the village, I'm going to call the name of the child. They had to walk from Seatons to All Saints to go to school on a daily basis. Yes, they would get rides sometimes, but they were constantly late to school. You can imagine young children on the road, down the road from Seatons, Mount Joy gas station, Jonas Road, into All Saints. By the time they get to school, they're tired. They're showing signs of being malnourished. These are the kind of issues that our children are facing out there today. We see the headlines, and I'm happy for the newspapers in a sense that some of them, they bring the information to the general public as it is. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're here today, because of some of the headlines. When you see a headline that a 56-year-old male would have violated a 5-year-old and would have been sent to prison for 3.5 years, and that same 5-year-old now has to live with a sexually transmitted disease for the rest of her life, we have to ask ourselves a question. What are we doing? What are we accepting? Is this the society we want to live in? Parents, we have fathers molesting their daughters, their sons. We have uncles. We have grandfathers, family friends. We have the coach on the football field. We have the bus driver who's supposed to be dropping the young lady to the bus stop in the village, but takes a detour, ties her up in the back seat and rapes her, and goes to jail for 38 months. What are we doing as a village? Is this the new norm? This is what is acceptable now for as a society? Where is the outrage? Where is the outrage from the church? Where is the outrage from the community groups? Where is the outrage from the intellectual keyboard warriors who are always on Facebook attacking every single issue in this country? Where is the outrage? Our Prime Minister would have made a statement, and everybody in this country, well, not everybody, most people, they are fixated on the words the Prime Minister uttered, but they're not fixated on the root cause. Gun violence and sexual abuse of children. How can it be acceptable? Another case for a 47-year-old man to take a 4-year-old and violate her and be sent to prison for 5 years. Nobody wants to attack the judiciary, not me for sure. Nobody wants to attack the police. But we have to ask ourselves a simple question: how are we going to protect our children or not? We have 3 branches of government, and for me, the most important thing, each branch has a responsibility to serve the people. The people. We serve the people. We serve the children that have been abused. Tonight, I'm asking for open, honest, and frank discussions. As a government, we do not have all the answers, especially on this issue, because the abuse is happening behind a closed door in what is supposed to be a safe space, in a home. When daddy abused the daughter, or the stepfather abused the son, how can the government reach into that home? We've had instances where, after the fact, family members have come forward. Oh, they saw the signs and they saw this and they noticed. It is always after the fact. The neighbor would say the same thing. Oh, I always knew something was wrong. But if you see something that's wrong, say something. Make an anonymous report. Because the day you decide to be quiet for that child, it may happen to your child when you're not suspecting. No pedophile, no child abuser in this country should be safe. That's my opinion. You should not be safe. You should not be able to walk freely amongst us. And too many are walking amongst us. My director would tell you that my stance on persons who abuse child in terms of exposure is not correct because you have to protect the victim. But for me, if I had my way, I would have a big billboard that when they're convicted, their picture and their name would be up. Because I stand corrected. I think there comes a point when we have to weigh our options. Yes, we have to protect our children. Yes, we have to protect the victims. But sometimes we have to go that extra mile to expose the persons, the people, the men, the women who are facilitating this type of abuse. Before I turn over to my colleagues on the panel, I have a survivor who wants to share her story tonight. Because I think it's most impactful when you hear from someone who would have experienced it. And I'm going to turn over to that survivor now.
All right, thank you, Minister Turner. The survivor is going to speak now, testing to ensure that the audience can hear, the media can hear. Now, for our viewing and listening audience, we will not go live with the person, but you will hear her. She's in the building, and you will hear her.
Hi, good evening, everyone. At present, I'm 28 years of age, and I've been abused since I was 6. There was no penetration until I was 11. I was abused by my father. And at the age of 15, I got pregnant with my first child. My first child is now 11. I reached out when I passed from primary and went to secondary. Didn't feel like I could speak to my primary school teachers about what was happening because nobody understood me. I was just the loner child in the background, not playing with the others, and nobody ever thought that there was something wrong. And my parents were friends with the teachers, so if I would go right back to my father because he was a parent that was always. So I said nothing in primary school. When I went to secondary school, I confided in my counselor at the school, Miss Jermaine, and I started telling her the problems that I was facing at the time. And she then called the police officers because it was a big thing. I didn't know it was a big thing, but it was a big thing at the time. And so there was some investigation done. I was removed from the home. They put me Good Shepherd. At the time, I wasn't pregnant. This was around 11, 12. They said I had to investigate. 3 days after being in the home, my father came back to me telling me all kind of stories of what they do to children in girls' homes. So I recanted my story because at 11, I'm very naive. So I recanted my story, and I guess since I recanted, they placed me back in the home. I continued to be abused within days of going back. I went back again at 13 and said something. There was an investigation again, but this time I wasn't removed from the home. I eventually got pregnant at 15, and I guess that's when it really hit that something was happening. I was removed from the home. No. My mom put me out when I was 15 and pregnant, yes. And I went back to Miss Kelsick because I didn't know who to talk to, who to go to, where to go. Didn't have anywhere to live, didn't have a job. I was going to school. I stopped school. They put me in another home for girls, Mustard Seed Ministries. They took me up. The job was 6 months. Ms. Roberts said I had to go back to school. It's a policy that I go back to school and finish my education. We had to go to different offices because at that time, not back then, but at that time, they said that you can't have a baby and go back to school. And we went to Ministry of Education and stuff like that. And Mr. Claiborne wasn't having it. But Ms. Roberts went to the school. I thought it was comprehensive. We had just moved from Miss Biza and transitioned into Mr. Roberts. And Mr. Roberts took me. He said, send her to school. And so I went back to school. I finished school. I have 4 subjects. I could have done better, but I had to work. I had to go to school. I still had to look after the child. So I'm grateful that I have 4 subjects. My mom say at 11 that I came into her life to take her man. She said, she used to tell me a lot of degrading things. She used to say, I'm the problem. My father wouldn't do that. Even my grandma, God rest her soul. She died a few days ago, almost a month now. But my grandma say, not Sean, because we call him Sean. She said, not Sean. Sean would never do her something like that. Okay. And my cousin used to tell me I should at least be grateful that my father is still around. So people say a lot of things. Then I don't talk to those people right now because I cannot go around my head to hold a conversation with them. So I don't talk to them. We had battles with welfare because upon turning 18, apparently money is given to the home to look after the girls. But then when you turn 18, that's it. That's it. You are to go out and branch out and be on your own. And at 18, I did not have common sense. Basic common sense of planning and looking after a child and working. I did not have those. I didn't get them until 25, honestly. It did not hit me that I have to be doing this myself until I was 25 years. So Ms. Roberts said, nevertheless, we're going to push through. She said, I'm going to have to cut back on certain things that I'm accustomed of doing because they're not funding. So basically funding for other children was being allocated so I could get resources for me and the child. She kept me until I was 21 years. And around 20, I started talking to this man who eventually became my boyfriend. So at 21, you're going to let me go. I have nowhere to go. So I spoke to him and he took me in. He was doing everything for the child. He was doing everything for me. But you know, man, I'm just saying, eventually, me do all these things for you, you must do something for me. So I got pregnant 5 years after with his child. At this present moment, we're not together. But he looks after his child. So it's a 50-50 thing. But the problem is, no. I have a daughter that I have to give 100% to. So even though that I went through all of this, I feel like something should be put in place for when the survivor becomes an adult. Teach money management, help get assistance, getting them a job so they could know what it's like to eventually have to branch out on your own because it's going to get harder. So then I have 2 children now. The man I give 50 and I have to put the other 50 plus I have to look after my daughter. I'm now an adult. I live by myself and you know, I have to do it. I have a job. I have a government job. But then, you know, government job. They pay liquor, but you have to make it do what you have to do. So there are times when simple things that should be provided are not provided because I cannot afford it. The battle has been tough. The battle has been tough, but, you know, and then there's time where I just, you know, go into a state of depression. I just can't. I just can't. I just can't wrap my head around why he would do what he did. It just, the part that never come true. Because I look at my children. I look at my daughter. She's 11 now. And that not happen to she. That can't happen to she. And me and she mama, I don't know enough for mommy head. I don't know what she did think about. I would not come on TV and say she loved too much man, but something wrong with she. Something wrong with she. And what wrong with she and wrong with me? Me perfectly fine. So sometimes I just go into a state of depression and stay there a while. But then at the end of the day, I have to remember or remind myself that I have the children to look after. I cannot stay in that state of depression. And because I know what I know, I'm not out here trusting man. I'm not. I cannot. I can only trust myself. So even though I'm in a state of depression, I have to sometimes pull myself out of that state to look after them children. And it's very hard. It's very, very hard. But I have to do it. So there are times when, you know, it's tempting to be a healthy crackhead out here, but I cannot. I cannot do that. So I would say when children speak out, listen to the children. There are some children who are just rebellious, but at the same time, listen to them first and investigate while listening to the children. Children just get up and talk stories because they want to talk stories. They talk stories because sometimes part of the story might be true. Not all of the story might be true because some picking nigga out here. But then there are others that are telling the truth. I must commend welfare. They've done a good job. Ms. Kelsick has been, from time I spoke out about it, my social worker was Ms. Kelsick, and Ms. Kelsick was out here doing things that were exceptional. The lady used to find things from nowhere and bring it. Pull Pampers out of the sky because she not have money, but she find it. She found it. And I would like to say thank you to Mr. Roberts. He gave me a second chance. I really needed that second chance. I would also like to say thank you to Mrs. Roberts. She was the leader of Mustard Seed Ministries. Oh no, from time to time, she would call me up and say how I'm doing and if the kids need anything. And she would take me grocery shopping, that lady in my corner from day one. I would like to say thank you for everyone who helped me. It's hard, but I came out. I came out sane, perfectly sane, because this would traumatize somebody and put them where they don't want to be in life. Thank you.
Another round of applause for our perfect survivor. There's something that she said that stood out to me. There is nothing wrong with me. There is nothing wrong with me. And when we begin conversations with our young people, remind them, there's nothing wrong with you, but we need you to talk. I'm going to pivot now to our Director of Social Services here, Mrs. Charles Richards, and I want to ask you the question because I think the general public, they want to understand the process of all of this. So just walk us through it from first the concern is raised, then what actually happens after the reporting, the investigation, what happens when allegations of abuse of any kind, may it be physical abuse, may it be sexual abuse, what happens?
So this is where I get in trouble. All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for coming out. The process so we have 3 referral pathways currently. Our first referral pathway is our education system, where Ms. Errol, a principal, a counselor may call and indicate that there's been a report of abuse, or whether it be sexual or physical assault, or even neglect. From there, an officer goes to the school, if it's a school situation, and investigate the matter, along with inviting some of the family members in for a discussion. And from there, a decision is made whether the children are going to have to be placed in alternative housing, etc., depending on what that situation may be, if it's a neglect situation. However, if it's a sexual assault matter, that is referred to the sexual assault unit. An officer will be present for the adolescent child to give their information. Then they go through the medical process in terms of identifying if they have been indeed sexually assaulted, gathering evidence, etc. And from there, the child is usually placed with a family member, or placed within foster care, or within a home to provide safety. And then we go to court, right? So there is a process that happens in most of these cases that we don't talk about, and that is the court process. In addition to that, we would have had the situations where with the physical abuse matters, both of them, in some cases, they end up in the hospital. So for this year, we have had 3 serious physical assault matters so far for the year. We would have first gotten the first report from a community person, and then it went to the hospital in conjunction with the police and the officer. And in the other one, what should happen is that we always hope that the parents get arrested, but that doesn't usually happen, right? Now, that has been one of their biggest challenges in the process, right? And we have had cases that still haunt some of us to this present day. One being a young boy, age 8, neighbor called, said that she heard him being beaten for the last couple of days. We went in, we were barred from entry by an attorney and the parents. And, we had to escalate that a little bit higher. And an instruction came down that they should be arrested if they further barred entry. We got in, the child had ligature marks on both hand and feet, bruises about the body, was very small for his age. And we would have then called my good colleague at Mount St. John's Medical Center, both of them, Dr. Sequoia Servier and also Dr. Siobhan Bell Jarvis, for care and protection for this child, along with a medical examination. In that case, we found that the child was significantly malnourished, a broken collarbone that was healed badly, and a lot of soft tissue damage throughout his body. We placed the child, before we placed the child, the parents pretended to come to hospital, pretended to be medical professionals to gain access in deterring the child from sharing what had happened to him. After that, we placed the child in foster care. The foster parents were threatened. They brought the child back to the office, and the parents were outside waiting because they were hoping that the child would be returned. The child was returned, and we had to change 4 vehicles that night to find a safe haven for that child, so that they could not trace where he was. We got taken to the American consulate. We got dragged into several meetings. The matter went before the magistrate, who determined or decided that the child should go back home. Okay? So the child went back home. Okay? The child went back home, and about a couple months ago, the case resurfaced late December, and this was another country reaching out to us to find out what happened in this case. The children are now in foster care in that country, all 3 of the children. And the parents, we would have had to send our case file to that country so that the crap that happened here did not happen there. So the children are now in foster care in a different territory. And this is the part where we says that the process doesn't always go the way it should. And very often we get a lot of lashes because everybody thinks that we're the only decision makers in safeguarding children. We are not. We have our good colleague on the other side. We have our other colleague on the other side that makes decisions based on what needs to happen, but doesn't always happen. Now, I do not know why that child was sent home. And also, my officers would have gotten threats. I got threats. I had friends call. We all got threats. We had friends calling us to tell us we need to be careful. I hated my job at that point in time because I felt like the system was failing, right? So there are days when we take all our courage to show up for this job. We have had officers who have been pepper sprayed. We have had officers who have gotten messages, who have been threatened. We have had, we have had several things happen in terms of seeking to protect children here in Antigua and Barbuda. For this year, we have had 287 cases. Let's say that again. 287. Over 30 of them are sexual assault matters. The rest are physical assault matters and neglect. Okay? So I'm grateful for our foster parents who come forward, and I have some amazing ones who come forward and say, yeah, I'm gonna help out, right? So that's how the process should work. But in a lot of instances, it does not. The system is slow, especially when it comes to justice for our children. And I'm also grateful to my amazing Crown Counsels that back for us in court, because half the time I'm really wondering sometimes what the magistrate to think about. But again, it's not just us. The process is supposed to be intake, investigation, assessment, removal if needed, finding alternative care. The justice system should be enacted to ensure that this doesn't happen again. Yeah? But that does not always happen. And as a result of that, we have persons who are still within our society and continuing to harm children. Some of them could very well be your partner, and that's just the reality of it, because that's the truth. Because another thing, we don't have access, and of course we know that there was a lot of arguments about the sexual registry not being made public. Yeah? I'm hoping that that will change at some point in time, because at the end of the day, a perpetrator should not show up in a daycare center working, or be a security guard at a school, or be a police officer. And let's just be real. I'm not trying to knock nobody, but we have had cases where police officers were the perpetrators too. Yeah? That's just the reality. And we have had cases where persons have had to step back from pursuing the case further because persons may have been coerced, right? So the system should work that way, but it does not always result in the way it should. And as a result of that, we have stories like the ones you just heard where children go back into the same settings and situations escalate. Okay? Because that is the reality. And we do our best with our limited resources, because my good minister knows we still don't have a building, but we still cater for 287 children this year. $287 children. Let me put it another way too. Cases. 287 predators. A plus. Approximately. Because in some cases, they're reoffenders. And unlike my minister, I wouldn't want them to be put on a billboard. I like for some of them to medically castrated. So on that note, allow me to pivot to ACP. Michael.
Sir, you're here because you are a part and parcel of our law enforcement mechanisms in Antigua and Barbuda. We ask you, and this is before I turn to the audience, because I know a lot of us here are really willing and eager to take the mic, correct? They have questions, you have questions, you have stories, you have recommendations. We're going to get to that. But we heard a lot we had a lot of stories, and thank you so much for being very candid with the awful picture that you would have painted, but it's our reality. It's not just a picture, it's our reality. ACP, walk us through it. When an allegation is made and the child care services contact your office to seek an investigation to happen, what happens from your end? Walk us through the investigation, what actually happens, and why there are times the investigations are either halted or there's a crack in it.
Thank you very much. I'm extremely happy to be part of this very important discussion here tonight because, of course, there are many social issues within the confines of the home. And based on my experience, I have seen a number of persons, more specifically young children, have suffered the consequences of violence within the home, more specifically from males. And of course, what normally happens, because the male at times, he is the forgiver within the home, the mom of the child are very reluctant in coming forward to lend support in giving statement. And my good friend Fiona can attest to that as well. We have a very good working relationship between the special service, the social service unit and the police. The special victim unit is a subsidiary within the CID. I'm happy to say that I'm the officer in charge of that department. When a report is filed with the police, it doesn't matter where the report is made. It is transferred to the special victim unit. That team will be dispatched and walk along with the victim. The victim will be taken to a medical doctor to be medically examined, and of course statements will be recorded from the parties who are involved. The suspect will be taken into custody as well, where he will be interviewed, and of course warrants will be executed at the scene to extract what evidence, physical evidence that can be recovered. Then the matter will be, the person will be charged, and the matter will be sent to the Director of Public Prosecution, and then he's the person responsible for ensure that committal proceedings is taken care of and it is transferred to the High Court. That's basically the process. Yes, I am not going to deny that there are some deficiencies where, and we have investigated officers within the organization, and some of whom are within the confines of the prison. And I always tell people, I am here to deliver one thing. It is a professional service to the organization, to the public. And of course, if you're not satisfied with the services provided by any officer, you're not feeling comfortable with it, of course, you have all the right to voice your concern. We are your servant. You are paying us to do one thing, and it's to do a professional service. So if there are any breaches where any police officers are violating their duties, my number is 464-5599. Give me a call, and the appropriate action will be taken against them.
Repeat the number again.
464-5599. As a matter of fact, I am not afraid to arrest any police officer. I have arrested quite a number of them. 464-5599.
All right, thank you for that. Before we go to the floor, our survivor has a statement to make because, again, open floor, and we all are free to rebut or to counteract something that is said, but once it's done in a very respectful manner.
ACP Michael would have said that there's an investigation being done in every matter reported. Mr. Michael, my situation was reported since I made the first allegation. The only investigation that was done is that they took me to make sure that I was touched. They took me to the clinic to make sure that my hymen was broken, and it was. After that, I made various statements were made, and I felt like there were no communication from the police end. There was no communication. They came back into my life after I would have spoken to the counselor at the hospital. At the time, Miss Norton was the counselor at the hospital. I would have spoken to Miss Norton, and she would have contacted the police after I said it's not true in front of my mom, because my mom was right there watching me, and afraid blows. Investigation started again, but there was no outcome of that investigation. Miss Kelsick was the one who told me, my social worker was the one who told me to take it to court for child support. Take the man to court. That's the only way to prove that he's the father. So I took what she said and I ran with it. I took him to court for child support. He denied the child and he had to pay for the DNA test. Every time I go down to Longford's police station, somebody either tell me, let the police do their job, or give me a runaround story. Up to now, I haven't heard from the police officers on the matter. Yeah, we took a DNA test with family court, and family court, the reading of the DNA test was done during COVID, and it's 99% his child, so he got arrested. There was a court case from family court, and then they said they sentenced him for 22 years and 8 months. Nobody from that side said anything to me. But I was all over the place making statements. Everywhere they wanted me, I was there making statements. They need better communication with the people involved. It's not a hush-hush story anymore. From the time an underage child, somebody older, there's nothing you can hide from a child. Well,
Angie, the mic is breaking up. We're not hearing clearly.
What I can assure you...
It was, apologies, it became very emotional at that point. She's basically saying that there is no follow-up or no follow-through. It took a DNA testing through family court for child support to confirm that the predator was indeed the father of the child, and that is how the case went forward, and that is how he was trialed and sentenced to 22 years in prison. The question that she's saying, or the statement she's saying, is that though an investigation happens, there's no follow-through. No one ever contacted her. No one ever said, okay, this is what's going to happen next. Would you like to respond to that before we turn it to the floor?
Certainly. I am going to make some inquiries into this matter, and of course, we'll reactivate the whole process. You finished?
It's already 7 times.
7 times?
Yeah, it's already 7 times. Yeah, because it was 11 years ago.
A very police response, but thank you. And we understand the sensitivity in certain cases. The young lady, her name is not revealed here, but of course you can contact Minister Turner and you can contact Charles Richards for her information if you do want to see what happens. We're also going to turn to Dr. Sequoia, because at the hospital she sees the cases, whether it's sexual abuse or physical abuse. Could you please walk us through that? What happens when family services reports to the hospital? What is the next step?
It's actually the other way around. Good evening, everyone. So my department, the social services department at the hospital, we get most of the referrals from the physicians. So if it's a child, it may come through the ER physicians or through the pediatrics department. We get the referral, we meet with the patient. What I tend to do with the patients is that I speak to them alone, no parents present. I bring them to my office, I have a conversation with them. I might have one of my social workers sit in with me as a second person taking notes so that we can gather as much information as we can without any intimidation. I would then speak to the parent alone, and based off of what I'm hearing, I then send a referral to my good colleague, Ms. Giles. So I'd make a phone call, we would ponder, try to figure out the plan, because then I will be the one to say, okay, this child is staying here until family and social services can do their intervention. And I've had many, many, many instances where I've kept children at the hospital for way past a month for safety concerns. And, you know, sometimes I always have to give a big shout out to my pediatrics team because they work with me. I know a lot of times it's not necessarily a medical issue, but more of a social and safety protection issue. And sometimes the ward is full. We actually have 6 children, and they're in that environment, but they work with me, and I'm forever thankful that I have them in my corner. So big up to my PEDS team at the hospital. So we will then, it's literally a collaboration until this child is discharged. We've had instances where I would have to send out an email to department heads and say, hey, this person is not allowed to visit. They're not supposed to pass the front desk. They're not allowed to come up the stairs. And I've actually had instances where I actually needed police presence at the hospital because the pediatric ward is a very vulnerable ward. And unfortunately, I would not get the police presence that I need at that moment in time. So sometimes I do have to work along with the security of the hospital to sometimes have a security officer stationed outside the door, checking passes and so forth. I've actually had, Fiona would have mentioned that staff would have been pepper sprayed. One of my social workers and one of her welfare officers would have been collaborating on working on a specific case, and the parent pepper sprayed them in my office. And they had to be immediately taken to the emergency room. So we were down 2 staff members, basically. And then we had to bring in extra help to carry on with the case. We've had instances where people come to the hospital with cutlasses looking for me and my staff. I would have to try to escape through one of the exits and make my way back to Cooksville, where I come from. Because even though it is necessary to protect the children, we don't have that protection at the hospital. We now have police presence around the clock. They're stationed in the ER. I'm very thankful for that right now. So shout out to the operations director at the hospital for making sure that we have some sort of police, armed police at the hospital. But prior to that, I've had to write a letter for me to have very, very dark tints on my vehicle, because sometimes Fiona's department may not have a vehicle ready, and I would have to transport that person or patient to the foster family that they're going to, and they will literally wait at the hostel, see who's moving with the baby or the child, and we'd have to move at a very strategic time of the day. Like, it's the stories that I can tell you, you wouldn't believe me, but it happens. It happens. So I'm all about dark tints. I'm sorry, tinting has been a very big topic for the last few days on social media. But in certain instances, there are people who work within my department, family and social services. We need the dark tints just to... we need the dark tints on our vehicles because for, the safety and protection, not for ourselves, but also for our clients that we do serve. Does anybody have any questions?
absence? Okay, before we get to the floor, we want to just make sure that our panel, so we understand where they're coming from. Also, ACP Michael, I hope you're taking notes. So police escort, police intervention. So whenever the good doc here calls, you pick up on the first ring. All right. Mr. Roberts, oftentimes the school is the first place where signs of abuse happens. Walk us through that, what it is that teachers would normally look at or look for to see signs of abuse, and what are the next steps that they would often have to take?
Good evening to everybody. Special good evening to the panelists. I don't necessarily agree with your statement that the school is the first place. The home is the first place. And because the home refuses to act, then the child comes to the next safe place, which is the school. I heard from the victim, and I was fresh into Others Comprehensive School when the matter came to my table. I was fresh into Others Comprehensive School when that matter came at my desk. Coming out of Jennings Secondary School, would have dealt with similar situations and would have made a conscious decision as an administrator that every child deserves a second chance. And so even though that some of my colleagues at the time did not necessarily agree with me, I moved straight ahead to assist. We have situations in our schools where the students, they come and they make complaints that they reported these incidents to their parents, and nothing happens. Just like what Ms. Charles Richard said, that mommy is always in denial, especially if the stepfather or the boyfriend is the breadwinner. She has 4 other children to take care of. Their husbands are deadbeats. They don't take care of their children. So she has this one breadwinner. And to give up this one breadwinner, then what is she going to do for the other 3 children? Those are real situations that we have. And so the child, we have a present situation at our school with a young lady. She started cutting herself because she said that nobody is listening to her. She has been physically abused, sexually molested by a stepfather. And then when you do the investigation, it's a similar situation, that the mother has several children. The fathers are not taking care of them. This one breadwinner that she has, and then the child wants to take the breadwinner away from her. And so our counselors, they have their job cut out for them, because Others Comprehensive School is not an easy school. We have a lot of vulnerable children in that environment, in that campus. And it takes a lot of courage sometimes to make some bold decisions, sometimes even at the, I wouldn't say the detriment of the child, but sometimes just disregarding the social system to provide the help that that child really and truly needs. And so when you all see me standing up at the gate in the mornings, it is not because I want work to do. It is because I am aware that a lot of pedophiles drive down that road in the mornings and attempt to pick up my children and take them and do whatever they want with them. And nobody does anything. So I'm out there to protect them. And I want to say to the policymakers, the legislators, the laws are them soft, man. The laws are them soft. Soft. Parents need to be held responsible for keeping a child out of school to take care of another child that does not belong to them. And I think that there is a law on the book where the parent can be charged, but nobody doing nothing, nobody taking that chance. Nobody wants to take that step. Y'all give me the work. Give me the work. Somebody needs to be the example that we set in this country, else it's not going to stop. And y'all don't make my work any easier. Legislators, y'all do not make my work any easier. I'm sorry for Ms. Payne-Hyman because she has to interpret the law. And when she interprets the law, some of us don't agree with her interpretation, but it is her interpretation. And if you want the law to be stricter, put it to be stricter so that she don't have no choice. So for me, if we are really serious about helping our young people, we have to start from the home, because when we have safe homes, we have safe schools, safe communities, a safe society, a safe nation. Another point I want to make before I turn over the mic. It's a kind of a terrible thing when you put the mic in front of me, because I just speak. But I speak truth. Another thing I want to address is nobody is catching the number of young people who are falling by the wayside out of schools. The reasons why they're falling by the wayside, what they do when they leave school or they fall out of school, and what help can be offered for them. I just turned 60 the other day, so I'm retiring shortly, and I need to enjoy my retirement. I need to be able to sit on my veranda, if I do have one, and enjoy my retirement. That nobody is going to come and try to steal from me or to rob me or to beat me up. Snatch chain, I don't wear chain, so they're going to have to snatch something else. And beat me up because somewhere along the line we did not catch them early to give them a different pathway to be more productive. Because everybody is not going to be intellectual. Everybody is not going to be a doctor, lawyer, teacher, minister, prime minister, police officer, whoever. Some of them are just going to be the builders of our state. They're going to have to work hard, build road, build houses, dog pen. But if that is what they are good at, then let them be the best at it. So we have to provide avenues for these things to happen. Who is capturing? Because I can tell you, in 20 2021, 2022. Well, let me go to last year. 2025, 2026. I took in 121 students at Otto's Comprehensive. Not just at first form, because there was some transfer in. And we took in 121. So you don't want to believe that at the end of 5 years, you'd have 121 or close to 121 graduating, yes? 67. 67. Come to the West. Some drop out, some repeat. And we talk about crime. I leave it there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roberts. Move quickly to Ms. Norton. You work very closely with children and families. What are they saying that perhaps social services or even the police force have not learned as yet? Why are they still missing the mark?
Okay, good evening, everyone. I just want to join with everyone else in saying thanks to all of you for coming. In terms of what families are saying, one of the things I've noticed, and I've worked in hospital and worked at welfare and worked with everybody on the panel, and I've been out of government service actually for 6 years, but there's not a month that goes by that there's not a call from somebody related to child protection. Our parents are supposed to be the gatekeepers, but what we have happening now is that some of our parents are prostituting their children. We've had, I'm in a number of mentorship groups in secondary school. Otto's Comprehensive is one, and a couple of other schools where I mentor young people. And the young persons would say to you, I don't have supplies for school, so I have to go out and have a relationship, have a sexual relationship to be able to get a school bag, to be able to get a pair of school shoes, to be able to get basic supplies, not the cell phones or sneakers, but to be able to get basic supplies. Some of our young persons have to enter into relationships. A lot of the young persons who are entering into relationships to survive, their parents know about it. Most often the mothers, unfortunately. Nothing is wrong with single parent homes. We have a whole host of single parents that are doing the best they can. But oftentimes when the father is not present in the home or in the child's life, not in the home so much, but in the child's life, that child often becomes vulnerable and the target for predators. If you were to ask the majority of the young persons who've been molested and abused, they will tell you that their biological father is not necessarily in their lives, because a father being in the child's life often acts as a deterrent. So that is one issue. And then we have mothers who themselves were victims. Oftentimes they become like the person who shared her story and become very strong and protective. Others become very vulnerable, and then there is a cycle. And so last year, a child came to my home. She was 16 years old. Her mother had a new partner. Her mother had a new baby come in, and she said, listen, you need to fend for yourself. You're 16. That child went out. She was abused by a couple of persons. She thought it was just one person that she was having a consensual relationship with, although she was not necessarily at the age of consent because she was on the cusp of 16, and he brought others into the picture. She felt she didn't have a choice. And what caused her to come to me was the intense guilt, because one of them said to her, look, you have a 12-year-old sister there, why don't you bring her and we will give you more money? And she said, no, she's only 12, you can't do anything with her. And I did ask if there were only adults here, and I did see a young child walk in. But what they said to that girl is, look, we're not gonna put it in. We're just gonna cuddle and things like that with her. They did not keep their word. And so she had to bring home a painful, crying 12-year-old sister. And then somehow or the other, she found herself at my home wanting to talk about it. So these cases are not unique. I've also had a number of young people who complain that their parents are saying you're at the age where you have to fend for yourself. So as everybody else on the panel has mentioned, we need to work with families as the first step in terms of gatekeeping and safeguarding our children. A lot of the times we prosecute the perpetrators, the gentlemen more often, or the men who harass, molest, and sexually abuse the children. But what do we do with the parents who know? How do we educate the parents to look for warning signs to say, your child is in crisis? The cutting is one way, but sometimes they hide the cutting. When there's a change in their grade, when that child is isolating. Now we have a lot of children vaping. We have a lot of children using, we can't even start talking about the use of marijuana tonight, because then we're not even going to leave. We're not even going to leave here tonight if we start to talk about that, because that's a whole other story altogether. But our children are vulnerable, and we need to empower parents. What are the churches doing? We have churches on almost every block in Antigua. Again, sometimes when a parent molests a child, we've had situations where the elders have gone to that child and said, don't press charges. God says to forgive. And so your father has molested her, and she is being guilted by spiritual leaders about pressing charges against that father. And so we have to look at the gatekeepers, we have to educate parents, we have to hold parents responsible. And one of the other things I want to say is that every single person, I looked at all of your faces when everybody was talking, and I saw the utter horror. And I saw some of you fighting tears. But I just want to ask what each one of you are doing. Everyone must know something. We know people who are predators. Do we speak up? Do we cover and say, okay, as the others have said, oh, he's the breadwinner, or it's your uncle, so we can't turn him in, or, you know, this, that, or the other? Nobody, we shouldn't be covering for anybody, right? We should not be covering for anybody, and everybody has to take responsibility. Yes, we need change laws. That is the number one thing, because out of that we'll have prosecution. But what do we do in terms of prevention? So we cannot be reactive. After the fact, we do this, that, and the other. We need to have a responsive plan. We need to prevent. We need to empower our young ladies and our young men. And by the way, young men are often abused too, most likely physically, and the women often sexually. So everybody is fair game for the predators. So each one of us needs to do our part. The media needs to do their part with educating. The churches, I think, have a very big role to play. And if there's anybody here listening from the church community who wants to know what they can do, we have a lot of documentation on things the churches can do to educate their members and to help the families who are vulnerable. We have a lot of vulnerable families. People don't have food to eat, they don't have places to go, and this is how sometimes the children end up outside. So we have to look at the push factors. What are happening in the families that are pushing children out? And we have to look at the pull factors. What are these predators offering that make the children come? And how can we turn things around so that the homes, the schools, the churches, our communities, and every single one of us in here can do our part. It's everybody's business, because the next child could be your niece, your granddaughter, your nephew. So it's everybody's business.
Thank you very, very much. It's everyone's business. And finally, Mrs. Payne-Hyman, throughout your years, you would have seen cases that reach the bench. Where does our justice system serve the children well, and where does it fail them?
Thank you. Good night, everyone. Before I speak about sentencing, I have to say certain things. As I sat here and I listened to everything everyone on the panel has said, I said to myself, I've been a magistrate. I've been a magistrate for nearly 20 years, and nothing has changed. The cases that I'm hearing you talk about, it's the same things I experienced when I first came to Antigua as a magistrate. I've been on so many panels, it's the same thing. If you've spoken to Faustina Jarvis, I saw Mr. Alvin Jarvis, but he's left. Natasha Alfred, Morville Francis, Norma Dorset Jeffrey. Those are all the same things that are happening. There's something wrong in your society. The minister cares. He spoke about a child who was 9 years old. I dealt with one who was 3 years old. We're dealing with the same problem. So I don't know what can be done unless we as a society change. When the minister spoke, he spoke about all brothers, uncles, but everything was of the male gender. We have to be honest. We live in a society where men like young women, and men pat each other on the back when they have young women. That's why Mr. Foster has to be outside at school watching the predators. So when you see men looking at young girls in a very sexual way, do you men scorn them or ostracize them? I was once in a professional meeting with a professional person. A young lady came in, and it's like his eyes dropped, his tongue hit the floor, and I was totally disgusted, and I still am. You have to control yourselves. We have to send the message out that you cannot be looking at young girls and boys in a sexual way. And the minister said the village doesn't raise the child. The people in the village know what's happening. And if you don't speak out, how do you expect police officers, the court system, and social workers to do their work? I have been in the supermarket after dealing with a case and be told, oh, Miss Hyman, that's not how it went. I don't care how it went afterwards. If you don't come and give the evidence, how on earth do you expect things to get better? The su-su, shushu, that doesn't work. People are criticizing courts, but you can only make a decision on the things you have. And another thing I want to say, when I first came here, there was a case with a pornographic ring. I'm sure you all remember it. How many cases got to the High Court? Not one. And why is that? Because people in the society cover for the wrongdoers. You're all guilty, we're all guilty. I'm not guilty because if I know, I talk. And that's the attitude you have to have. If you know, you talk. We don't come to meetings and just talk, and then we go home. Because threats have been made to social workers. It's not the first time. When I was a magistrate and these threats were made, I used to send the police for the parents, and I used to warn them. If you interfere, if you don't do this, if you do it, I'm going to deal with you. I'm not there to be liked. I was there to do a job, and I do it to the best of my ability. And the other problem we have is when you take children away from the home, it's hard to find people who will look after them. That's a big challenge. So yes, everyone says take them out, but who is going to take them? It's very hard to find suitable caregivers. So it is a very difficult and complex situation. Yes, you have a home, but there's only so many people that can be taken in that home. And everybody comes with their own individual problem. So you don't have a one solution for everybody. You have to deal with the cases on a very individual basis. And it's time consuming. Social workers are worn out. I used to get worn out, and the magistrates who sat with me get worn out, and magistrates do get worn out when you hear the ugly, nasty cases that you have to deal with. It is very stressful, it's traumatic for everyone. Now, with regard to sentencing, I need to make this clear. When you have sexual offences, they go to the High Court. The magistrates do not deal with sexual offences in the criminal sense. We would deal with sexual offences from the welfare perspective when reports come to us and we have to make a decision to put the child somewhere or give warnings and that sort of thing, find a fit person order. But I have to say this, I don't believe people should be given credit for a guilty plea, because if you did it, you're supposed to be punished. Hang on, and the guys get smart. They realise that if I say guilty, bam, 1/3 is off. When judges are making decisions, they have to look at mitigating factors and aggravating factors. And I think, having looked through the sentencing guideline, and just in general, it's not just in Antigua, everywhere, the victim gets forgotten. The victim gets forgotten because all the focus is on the offender. And I think we need to do a bit more shifting to think of how things impact the victim. So, I mean, in other situations, in other countries, you have a victim impact statement. And I think those are things which would help judges to maybe give more understandable sentences. And I'm not going to lie, there are one or two sentences that the minister referred to, and when I heard it, I thought, Jesus, how could that be? But I'm not going to criticize, because unless you hear the facts, get the reports, sometimes things that seem illogical make sense. And I'm not saying there's logic behind it, but I'm just saying sentencing is very hard, it's difficult, it's complex. And you can only go on the evidence and the material you have. Now, when people sit outside and say, oh, I know he did this 10 years ago, 20 years ago, if that's not before you, you can't take it into account. And sometimes the rules of evidence actually help, because there are certain things that cannot come into evidence, which really, in truth and fact, when you're dealing with matters from a welfare aspect, I could take them into account, but I'm not dealing with the criminal aspect. And I can say, well, okay, I can say to that man, you are not to go near the child, you're not to do this, or I'm going to lock you up. And people usually get afraid with that. So that's all I'd like to say at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The floor is now open for questions, statements, comments. I'm going to begin here, 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 and there. We take 4 at a time.
All of this is talk. And until the people who are responsible. I am not picking on. I'm not picking on.
No, she needs the mic because it might need still need the mic.
I'm not trying to pick. You understand? A part of the issue with this country is the police force. Some of the same men who are preying on the children are police officers. The response, I'm upset because simply saying I'm going to look into it, I'm certain that a lot of the victims have heard, I'm going to look into it, for nothing to be done thereafter. Legislation can be drawn and legislation must be drawn, and if legislation is currently on the books and is not being enacted, I say again, the problem rests a large part of this problem rests with the people who refuse to do their work. A lot of the people who are preying on the children and promising them money are people who refuse to follow up on reports that are being made is because the policeman is friend with the man that is raping the little girl or his uncle too. All of this is a waste of our time. Unless and until there is a gutting of our police force. The question that was posed to Mr. Roberts about the school being one of the primary places, I agree with you, sir, that the home is indeed the issue, but the school, as a teacher, as one of your teachers, the school is the shelter for those children. When I report to work in the morning and a child is sitting on the bench, miss, I can talk to you, and me don't know. Oh, Lord. I am not trained. I am not prepared. I do not have the skills necessary to help you, but I am the person that you picked. And I can't sleep for months because I know, even if a report is made, nothing. The point that the magistrate made just now, when you come to school and you say to the counselor, this is happening to me at my home. Say, okay, go home, we'll look into it. And I'm sending you back to the same, Mr. Minister, unless this government is prepared to expend some resources, we are wasting our time. Unless there are places to take these children and put them in, we are wasting. This is a talk shop. Dr. Sequoia is not SUV trained. She's not black suit. Look what she has to be doing. And while she's speaking, she's sitting next to somebody who is in a position to ensure that even while she's talking, he is figuring out, how do I get my part, my team, to protect them? And he is smiling. No, let me talk. I have seen it too much. This has taken too long to happen. The children of this country do not belong to the parents. The children belong to the government. The children of this country, and Mr. Roberts said it, we are currently reaping what we have sowed. It is children who is holding this country ransom with the crimes that are being committed. It is children who we have failed. A predator begets a predator. We have not dealt with nowhere near the root. We have not even begun to scratch the surface of what it will take to bring about the kind of change necessary to change what is happening in the society of this country. And we will not progress as a people until we do. We continue to overlook the children as though because they are small and because they are vulnerable and because they cannot speak for themselves, that they do not matter when they are this nation's greatest resource. Because it's not your child. We ask, okay, if you know about it and you don't do nothing, what are we doing? Jail them. There is no teacher that should be allowed in a classroom without having undergone the necessary training to identify, to report. There is none. You could have been teaching from since Rock of Ages was a pebble. You should be required. You should be equipped. If we are going to keep talking about what we already know, instead of having the conversations about what are the necessary steps that we can actually take to bring about the change, we are wasting our time.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. I don't know what I can say after Nadia.
Mike is there.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah? I don't know what I can say after you. Powerful presentation. But I listened to the speakers and I resonated with Maureen. Because this is not new. I sat there and I feel the energy in the room. People are kind of like, they were shocked. But this is not new. This is actually not new. I mean, I've been in this field for a very, very long time. Working in child services, educator, counseling, school counseling, and this is not new. It is not new. And so that's the issue. What we're going to do about it. The problem is a cultural problem. And I want that to resonate. It is a cultural problem. What kind of society do we have so that this problem persists? It cannot just be given stiffer sentences. Sentences for what? We should be moving to a place where we mitigate the problem stop. So what do? We have to ask questions about what kind of society we have. We still have a society that sees children as prey. We have a society that doesn't value children. I remember in the old time days, we used to dance and sing to baby food. Anybody remember that song? I mean, no? When there was a good song, Baby Food. I remember situations where, well, a cultural situation where men believe that they have to break in their daughters first. Let us sink in. You have to do their daughters first. We still have that. So we're talking about a culture. So how do we make Antigua and Barbuda a society where children are valued and are safe? At home, and at school, and in the wider society. And that's my concern, because I've been here. I have been here to the point where somebody, after having pursued a case, came at my home at the night and take off the lug off my car, drive out of my car, and the car fall down on the ground. I've been there. They have a culture. How do we stop it? How all of us are going to take responsibility for fixing ourselves? And nobody is guiltless. We are all involved and we are all consumed. All of us in a little part have something to do with what's happening with our children. When we turn a blind eye, when we want to figure out a who, because all of us seen that we want to, we want to know who, a who. And this thing about protecting the victim, we don't want to expose the perpetrator. That's a problem. Because it is not the victim's shame. It is the perpetrator's shame. And we need to flip that switch. We do need to flip that switch. And all of us must make our victims feel empowered in a society that embraces them, even when they are violated. So we don't hide them. Because when we hide them, we protect the perpetrator. I'm going to say give me 2 more points. So I'm going to make some suggestions. 2 things bothers me. Because I'm talking about how do we make our culture safe. 1, we still, as a culture, systematically beat children. I'm going to put that in there. Because if we beat kids, I'm talking corporal punishment. If we have corporal punishment, then our society is saying that kids aren't important and the system can violate them. If the system can violate them, then anybody else can violate them. We need to take that off the books. Another thing is that whole uniform thing that people like to put on Alma Mater Day. I'm going to bring it up right in this forum. Right up in here, I'm going to bring it. Because we missed the ball. We don't know how to assess risk for children. How do we assess risk for children? How do we make children feel safe? How do we pile on instances that make them be predators, be prey for predators? What are we talking about? So I'm going to suggest that we come back again and we talk about a national child safeguarding policy. Minister, I'm going to put it on you. We need a national child safeguarding policy and national child safeguarding framework. What we have. No, I'm not talking about the Child Act. A child safeguarding policy that talks about the intersection between education, gender, and that.
Yes, we have a child protection policy.
And we need everybody to know what it is. So all of us know the part we need to play in keeping and making our children safe.
So we do have a national child protection policy. It was launched. Within it is a safeguarding aspect. Yeah. There are different roles that different entities are supposed to play. There are requirements. There are instances where we have made it extremely clear who our mandatory reporters are and what should happen in the, in a result that persons are aware that this is happening. As we would have so greatly appreciated the statement tonight that my challenge isn't the law, you know. My challenge is it actually following through. Okay? My biggest challenge is with it actually following through. And I'm not even talking just about our sexual assault matters. Because for our physical assault matters, none of those parents were brought to justice. And we take those things for granted. We take for granted that for example, one case this year that stands out right now, when we ran down the police for weeks, ran it into months, concerning the arrest of a particular person who would have beaten his child to the point where she had a concussion, where she had a black and blue eye for 3 months. And he brought they brought their lawyer to the office, right? So my whole thing is, but then nothing happened. Nothing has happened. So it's not just about the reporting. It's not just about ensuring that the report happens, because we do need the reports to happen, but what happens to offer real protection to our children is my biggest challenge. And I also have a challenge when persons know it has been going on for years, months, etc., but don't say anything. The law is clear about them being arrested too. But at the same time, nothing happens.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. We take a question from this side of the room, and then we move back here.
Good night, everyone. My concern is, the panel is okay and everything, but I'm representing the church. There is no one from clergy on the panel to speak on behalf of the church. So where is the church? I observed something tonight. When we started, no prayer was made. A country cannot run without God. You can put everything in place, every system, but you need to put God first. When you put God first, things will work differently. But next time, I think they need to put a clergy, a bishop, a pastor. We have a bishop in the house here. I want to know, was anybody from the church invited on the panel?
I mean, we're having an open discussion. Being on the panel is not the main focus. We're having a discussion. So you don't have to be on the panel. You could be sitting in the audience. If you have something to offer, if you have input, if you have recommendations, that's why we're having, this is a discussion. So who is sitting on the panel is irrelevant. We could all be sitting amongst one another.
Okay.
And additionally, the notice of this meeting went out. Ask for a show of hands how many clergy are in here.
Well, I'm not sure. I only know about one.
So, Pastor Josiah, I saw Major Pierre. So your point is well taken, and I do agree next time we can start with prayer. I saw Major Pierre from Salvation Army who runs the Sunshine Home, and when an invitation is given, if people are interested, they will come. You don't have to be asked to be on a panel to show interest. And we did speak to clergy issues, so the gentlemen represented and females from the clergy do have a voice to be able to share. Thank you
very much.
I also want to make an injection as well, because when I came in, I scanned the audience and I was looking for the males. And just as we have in parent-teachers meeting at school, that it is always the females. What is really going on with our men? We are not leading. We're not leading our homes. We're not leading our families. And so we need to step up, because sessions like these need mommy and daddy. Sessions like these need husband and wives. Sessions like these need pastors, school leaders, ministry of whatever, leaders, politicians, all of us, because it is everybody's business. It is everybody's business. And if I may digress a little to my colleague, Ms. Brown, made a statement. You mentioned, you come to school and the child reaches out to you. That is not unique, because most of our children would prefer to speak to somebody who they think they can confide in. Sometimes they don't think that they trust the counselors. And you can't tell them that they should go to the counselors if they tell you that they're not comfortable going to the counselors. So they come to you. So if they reach out to you, then now you become their counselor, because as teachers, we are counselors, police officers, doctors, lawyers. We're everything. We are everything. We are, when I went to school, rest his soul, Mr. A.T. Lee told me that a teacher is a lawyer, a nurse, a doctor. He's everything to that child once the child is in his or her care. And if you don't see ourselves as that, then maybe we are also part of the problem. I'll leave it right there.
Thank you so much.
I just wanted to briefly add that there are some persons in our society who are considered mandated reporters. Pediatricians, teachers, persons in healthcare. And so it's not a matter of us seeing something and thinking, okay, I don't have to, it's not my business. We are mandated reporters, so we are expected to say something when something happens. And and the other thing is, as a community member, you might not have counseling skills or feel you're equipped. But if you see a mother with 4 children struggling, you can offer a bag of groceries. That child being able to eat might mean that child does not have to go to a meal to ask for food and be abused in the process.
All right, thank you so much. I know we have a lot of questions, so here's what's going to happen. We have 2 mics in the room. Mic over here, and I'm asking persons on this side of the room. You can come here to make your statement. There's a mic over here by Mr. Reynolds. I'm asking Mr. Reynolds if you can stand at the opposite side. And for persons over there, you can go to Mr. Reynolds. Also, we're asking, because time is not always our friend, 2 minutes to make your statement, but most importantly, to give your recommendation. We know the problems. We've heard them in the most vivid and candid way. Recommendations are the only path towards active solutions.
Good evening. So I'm not going to be emotional because I have 19 years of emotion. My children were brought up under a teacher who was very young when she came into the system and had to deal with a lot of things in a grade 1 classroom. And so my children were brought up in an environment where their mother did not allow them to go to parties, couldn't go to the beach, not even church was a safe place. And my big daughter will tell you she suffered socially as a result of that. Can you guys hear me now? So I don't have the experience with the police that many suggest that they have. Actually, the police have helped me to develop a persona as a teacher. People would know me as the teacher who is not afraid. I'm actually the country girl who is very afraid and shy, but because I had police officers who I could call and they would come to me or they would assist me in situations, I developed a very big okiro, okay? Because I was not afraid. Now, I worked at a primary school in town, one that feeds Otters Comprehensive, so I understand when Mr. Roberts suggests that the school is a school with children who have lots of needs. And I had police officers who gave me their phone numbers. I didn't know them. I developed a relationship with them, and so community policing, Mr. Michael, is what is important. The police has to be more attached to the community. So the police officers, they always reacted. One night, I remember like 12 o'clock, a parent called, couldn't find their child, so his mother had mental health issues. He didn't go home, and he took 2 children with him. And it was a police officer who came all the way to Bendos to pick me up. We drove all around Grace Farm. We were going to parents' home, and the police officer ended up having to come out of the vehicle and run, because when the children saw us and we said, hey, they took off. And the police officer came out and he got them, and we got them home. So I don't have that thing with the police that others suggest. Sexual abuse and trauma and neglect, I think what we're forgetting is that a lot of these parents themselves would have gone through these situations. They don't even understand that they're traumatizing their children. So even now you hear people say, oh, put some damn picnic, I want some blow. Not understanding that those things actually affected us negatively. We're passing them on to our children. It is abuse, but because it has become culturally acceptable, we now think that these things are normal. I have students who I taught as children who will tell you the only person they feel comfortable in hugging as adults is Miss Lee. Big men will meet me on the road that police will be dealing with crazy, and I can call to them, and they will come and break down to me. They don't have that at home. I don't think a lot of people understand that. So when we speak about punishing persons for behaviors, when we talk about punishment, we have to have both sides of the conversation. So Minister Michael Joseph, I saw that he had a program where he was doing some parenting workshop. I think that's an excellent idea that I thought others would have copied. That is something that the social transmission should be doing. So you may have a school like, that has some real issues with students. Most times the parents themselves, they don't even know how to be parents. There are parents who, if you go to them and you try to hug them, they'll probably flinch. You not being trained, you may not be aware of that. And you may say, but how is that a us problem? These are adults. But these are adults who have to care for children, who are rearing children. And we have to take all of this into consideration if we're going to have a real conversation. Now, I represent disability. I'm an educator who has now transformed. Well, I'm in transition. I'm dealing with persons with disabilities. That's my training. And when we talk about children, we're talking about persons of a certain age range. But I have adults who have the mindset of children. And while at adult school, I had a situation where a child came to school on Monday and he said he was hungry. But the hungry that he was hungry was just more than hungry. And when the parents were called, the parents said to me they forgot to feed him. So he didn't eat all Sunday because nobody remembered that he hadn't eaten. So he came to school on Monday knowing that there was going to be breakfast there. So when we talk about abuse and neglect, we have to also think about the people who are not seen. So we have a lot of persons with disability who only turn up to school when they may be 13 or 14. Who is ensuring that the persons who leave hospital with children with disabilities at 5 is trying to get assistance for them? Where are these persons going otherwise? So these are things that I think social transformation should have on their calendar as well. So you have nurses and preschool teachers, etc. These persons have to be brought into the conversation in a real way, where we're sitting down and having a conversation as how we're going to gatekeep to ensure that these persons are a part of this conversation as well. Okay? One last thing. So we're talking about persons being threatened. Teachers are a part of this. So when we ask for security at the school, these are the reasons. We have people that come on all the time. They feel like the child is too close to you. The child doesn't have to say something to you. If the parent who is the abuser thinks that the child is too close to you, you may be in a serious situation. So these are some of the things that we have to take into consideration.
Thank you so very much. Good night, everyone. Well, I'd like to commend the organizers. It's useful to have sessions like this. It would be useful, I think, if we could have some statistics. So we could have some objective information, some more objectivity in terms of how many cases, types of cases, the results of the cases, and so on. It would help in, forward planning and in assessing if progress is made, because we've been talking about this for a long time. Okay, well, basically, it's a moral problem. Okay, a social problem, a cultural problem. Now, we have concentrated on the protection of children and punishing the predators. But why do these people do what they do? This is a question that we must seek the answers for. And how do we treat them? I don't know, nothing was mentioned about the cases of physical abuse, whether or not there is provision for training the parents or counseling the parents. Because I think this is very important, because I really don't believe, I've lived on this earth for quite a few years, and I really believe most parents, in their minds, they're doing it for the children, right? They're doing, in their minds, they're doing it for the children's benefit. So the response should not be, in my opinion, punishment-driven. It's more healing, teaching that should drive the process. And you have to consider when the parent is arrested, stress is probably at the root of all this. When you consider the total situation, arresting the parent does not help the total situation. We have to have that question in our minds. I would submit.
That was a question I would love.
Well, I mean, I don't want to. Time is getting short. So I don't want to. I'm glad Mr. Roberts mentioned about children leaving school. About 30 years ago, a psychologist named Beverly Merrill wrote a book, Caribbean Schools in Crisis. And I think when we consider children in Antigua, we have to realize that the school system needs some serious overhaul and injection. To begin with, 5.5 hours of school per day. You can mold a child in 5.5 hours of school per day. The school day needs to be lengthened. You need a proper school day. And teachers need a doubling or a tripling of their salary, right? And what can we do? No, is it practical to, if somebody is beating their child, say, is it practical for you as a neighbor to go and say, stop beating that child? That happened. All right. And what would the neighbor tell you? Right? Okay. Well, let's be practical. What I would suggest that we can all do and become a village is that we can join organizations. We can strengthen the organizations that we belong to. The church, for example, and you join the church and you start a group in the church or whatever. But you have to join an organization, because if the parent, or if a parent has a right to tell you, well, put it this way, I don't really think it's practical to do it on an individual basis. But what I would suggest is that we all join organizations, and through the organizations, we take action, talk, motivate, do practical things. You can help to nurture people, and if you see somebody struggling, you help practically. You can give like some groceries.
Thank you.
And yes, and my good friend Miss North, you said there's nothing wrong with a single parent family. Well, I know I'm taking it out of context, but that statement some people would think is the ruination of society, right? Right. Right.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, but I had to tell my good friend Miss Norton that.
All right, thank
But
you
we
so
won't go
much
to
for
that.
your contribution. Proud single parent here, by the way. We're going to move on very quickly. Again, we're keeping this as tight as possible because there are a number of questions and, again, recommendations. All right?
Good evening to our extinguished panel. Thank you, Minister Turner, for this opportunity. I want to very quickly share a synopsis of my situation. I have come here tonight as a tired parent. And when I say tired, really tired. It's been 8 years since I've been dealing with a situation where at the age of 9, I would have bought my daughter a cell phone. That cell phone was purchased only because I was at a Women in Business conference and was speaking and missed 35 calls. She had missed her ride home from school. And so I made the decision to buy her phone. That phone turned out to be the worst thing I could have done in my entire life. I connected the phone to my email, and so one evening I saw some uncomfortable pictures. I cannot stand here tonight and tell you she was naked, she was indisposed, per se. I spoke to her about the pictures, and she gave me a very comfortable response. 2 months later, she came crying at midnight saying she had befriended a little girl by the name of Unruly Sophia. And Unruly Sophia, from taking pictures of her face, then wanted her to take pictures of her body. Now, Unruly Sophia was going to take the few, not very disposed pictures of her, share them on social media if she didn't meet Unruly Sophia to have sex. My name is Thalia Parker Baptist, sir. Now, what eventually happened was that my daughter tried to commit suicide on quite a few occasions. And eventually, I had to make the tough decision to set this person up because I realized it was a grown man right here in Antigua. I did all the work. I got 2 friends, one a businessman, one a bodybuilder, who knew her complete physique. We set everything up for his job, for her to meet him and have sex on that day. I did all the work, sir. And the police failed me. The police failed me, and they failed me so badly. Now, he has taken a trip. He's now in Canada, and he's determined to make our lives hell on earth. And so now it's been 8 years, no resolve. Our lives are a mess. My home feels a mess at times because my daughter will just not get over the situation. And what he did through Instagram was to befriend her friends. So ever so often they whisper to her, she's a top student in school, but ever so often they whisper to her, she has unfinished business. Assistant Commissioner Michael, I'm here tonight because I saw you on this flyer. And I needed your attention tonight, sir, because we need to deal with this. So if you could just please remember my name, and I'll be sure to leave my number at the door. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Head over here.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for all your presentations, and I've listened to all of them, and what I deem to be, seems to be a good system by each of you. What I didn't hear is how you all work together. I hear like there are all these silos. And so is there such an organization that oversees the whole process? Because I listened to you explain the process and said what it should be. But where is the overseer to make sure that the police is protecting you and protecting the children and that all of this works together? And I think for me, that's the piece that was missing. And I'm sure that each of you, in your own right, you do a great job, but I'm not hearing how this all works together.
All right. So, referral pathway 1, hospital, Sequoia. She calls us. Referral pathway 2, Ministry of Education. But you're the representation. Right? Right? And they call us. So most of the times we're either having meetings there or at the schools or wherever, different communities, etc. In some instances, as I said, there are persons within the community who will make reports, and then we would go into the community, have those conversations with persons, then contact the police, depending on what the situation is, Then, of course, if it's a situation where a child needs to be removed, then we're contacting foster parents or different organizations. We have contacted church organizations and right. So there's integrated approach in terms of how. So it's never one entity working with any of the cases. So even after we would have done our part, we also refer to Crown Counsel for their judicial aspect.
Right, but I guess the point I'm trying to make
Mm-hmm.
is that is the process.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't seem to me that it's all working as it should.
That is what I said from the beginning. So, right.
End result.
Overarching, like within the ministry, like a unit that says, okay, this is the fund, this happened, and this worked together. Like to me,
That's what
So in addition to that, what we do, so one of the conversations we've been seeking to have for the last month was to have a conversation with DPP, magistrates, AG's office, Crown Counsel, etc. Because again, although we work great together, we're having an issue there, right? So the conversation is supposed to happen where the AG allows for a setting that addresses where the gaps are. So we've recognized the gaps. We know where the gaps are. But myself isn't the only person who can address it because I am not responsible for the judicial system, right? I'm only responsible for the social and integrating those aspects. We do have the conversations, but it shouldn't be me having to call Mr. Michael. And that's the thing. We're calling individual persons. I want the system to work. I want every police officer to know exactly what their role is supposed to be. And so when persons say that there are certain things not done, we have parenting workshops all the time. But guess what? It's the same persons in here are the ones who are showing up. It's not the at risk. So one of the things that we wanted to address, the only thing that we wanted to add to our current legislation is mandating the parents to attend. Because that, unless they're mandated, they're not showing up. So even though they may have a child within probation, within child care and protection, at DBRC, etc., they're not showing up for the counseling. Counseling is free. They're not showing up, right? So there's also a requirement on the community aspect to also respond, but very often that does not necessarily happen. So when we're saying that we want this organization, let me say this, and I'm going to be blunt. When I was growing up, I grew up in Moravian until I was 9, and we had king daughters and sons. With them? No. No, they're not still going on. What? No, I'm still growing up. No. Right. So, and then there are other institutions, there are other churches, but no consistent youth programs. Right? So how do we really connect with our youth when we have a lot of youths in our churches, but not being connected to? I can say that Adventists does a really good job with their pathfinders, etc. And so that is their way of ensuring that they connect with their people. But no. But there are lots of church systems that does not engage our young people the way they need to be engaged. And this judgmental thing where as soon as a child acts out, or whatever the case is, that's a label. Children have ADHD, they have autism, they have dyslexia, they have a lot of challenges, but we just see the behavior and we put on a label. When a child has been molested for a significant period of time, they end up with challenges such as bipolar, depression, they end up with suicidal ideation, they end up with so many schizophrenia, etc. And we can go on. And we don't see that. We see the behavior. We see the behaviors and we label. But our parents, I blame some of you because some of you not showing up either. Right? You're not showing up either. And nobody bringing along the next person. So even though you know of a program or whatever the case is, you're not saying, hey, let's try this. Social Protection Board exists. Social Protection Board exists to allow for our disabled children to have access. So it exists. But I feel like sometimes the information is there, but we look for all the flaws. All the flaws, all the things that are wrong. But what are we doing? What is our part? What is our contribution? Because you can point the finger up here now, but then point it back twice. Because in some of those instances, half of those reports don't reach to the department. Because everybody wants to be heroes and queens and kings in their own right. And then the system shows up at the end when this thing has already blown up and has escalated and it can't put a lid on it no more. So yes, it's great that you're providing intervention, but ensure that the intervention follows the process of ensuring that the child is truly protected. Because what's all great, you've done that, you've supported them, great, what next? Because half of the time these children need counseling, half of the time they need assessments, half of the time they need to see a psychiatrist, and trust me, my officers have gone into their pocket for the $450 half the time to pay the psychiatrist. Right? So I'm just saying, nothing is wrong with providing your silo intervention, but let it go through the process. And a lot of the times, some of the cases, Minister was saying, Fiona, this case come in, and I was like, we've never heard of that. We've never heard of that, and now we're intervening at a point where the child either needs to be removed, somebody needs to be arrested, and the case has been there forever. So let's ensure also that when we make our friendships in different areas, that we enforce the process to take its course.
Just before we get to the next speaker, Mom, I just want to add this, if you permit me. Thank you. When I was growing up, I was a part of Boys Brigade. The other day I went to Youth Rally and I was appalled. There was one company of Boys Brigaders on the Youth Rally Parade and the Independence Ceremony Parade. When I was growing up, we had over 12 companies in Antigua and Barbuda of Boys Brigaders. And people fighting to get in. Because parents ensured that their child or children participated in these groups. Girls Brigade, Brownies, Girls Guide, you all name them. Look at the parade when Independence Morning come, 2026, and see how many young people are in these programs. Look, these programs help. They assist you, the parent, in parenting your child. We have a lot of mothers and fathers, very few parents. A lot of mothers and fathers, because anybody can make a picnic. Anybody? But how many of those mothers and fathers are really parenting? Send your children to these non-profit organizations because they help you in raising your child. That's what I want to posit to us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that intervention. 2 minutes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Minister Royden Turner, I saw you this morning on the news. I had a conversation with somebody earlier last week about coming here today, and I was in two minds, but watching you this morning and your presentation, it led me to come because of two things that you said. What you said about the village and how we as a village are letting our children down. And also your social workers that are being burnt out from the work that they have to put in. And I assume that all of you as panelists have had times where you've just knocked your head against the wall wondering how can I help the next child. So what I'd like to say is a few things. The presenter has said about recommendations. There's so many things that we can all recommend. It's just how we go about doing it. That sign, National Child Protection, please bear in mind that it's an international problem, not just here in this region. So we all need to be talking together. All the different agencies throughout the world can help one another. You've got CHOGM in a couple of months' time. Maybe this is something that needs to be put on that table. Because as I said, it's not just national, it's international. Some of the comments that have been made today have hit a lot of our hearts. A lot of us maybe never even knew that these things were going on. And I remember my grandmother saying in Seaview Farm, "We love for my neighbour business." Well, we're not minding neighbour business, because if we was, we would be doing more. You hear a scream in a village, you hear an argument, you hear a child crying, and what do? We turn our faces. We act as if we never heard. And that could be a vital part of a child's survival. I mean, I've got notes on my phone here, and we haven't got enough time, but I want us all to pull our weight. Living here and seeing and hearing some of the things that are going on, there needs to be a change in Antigua and Barbuda and the whole of this region. And if it doesn't happen soon, we are going for some seriously torrid times. COVID never helped us. It never helped us. I know that in England, the sexual assaults went up tenfold. I know because I worked within it. And I can assume it was no different here in Antigua. We need to listen. When children talk, we all grew up going to visit family and we were told, keep quiet, keep quiet, keep still and keep quiet. We need to have our children have a voice. We need to listen to our children. If they say they have a pain below, recognize something's going on. Please listen. That's all I'm asking. I don't know the answers, but I'd really like to see some change and for the better of this country. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. So my name is Ashanti, and this is probably the biggest panel I've ever seen for this topic, and I'm grateful for everybody that's here today. Your faces are forever etched in my soul. Now, why I'm here, lovely Angelica reached out to me last night, very short notice, because I am also a victim, a public speaker on the topic, and somebody that has survived. I don't want to say I'm probably sane, but I try my best to be sane. I can relate to the victim that spoke earlier. It is something that lives with you, and it's something that you have to accept for the rest of your life. So it's not normal for a victim to come face to face with everybody and say, hey, this is what I went through, without there's a possibility of judgment. So I know, sitting here, I know I'm cute and shit today, but it's a struggle. But I get up every day. I have 2 boys, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I fight every day. But the fight that the victim said about some days, just because you have the children, is the reason you get up, because we don't want to live. It's something that never leaves. And yes, when you're done, do the judgment, put them in jail, we have to continue living in society. And they have this thing where people say, oh, lad, she life ruined. Yes, your life is ruined because we project that onto the victims. And that's one thing I could say, y'all need to stop doing that. Because they hear you. The victims do hear you. We are quiet, but we hear you. And I come from a good family. Big name, nice name. We have a good family. So I don't come from what we would call the slums, where we're vulnerable. I come from a good family, a big family, something that's totally on the other spectrum, where we always think it's the children that are vulnerable. No, my home was safe. happy, and it happened anyways. And my own went on for 10 years of my life. I was 10. And eventually speaking to family, because I took it upon myself to heal myself because nobody was coming to save me. And at 15 years old, when I was about to commit suicide, I had a talk with my own self. And I was willing to endure all that pain, all that drama for me to be right here to let you know that it's not easy for us, the victims. And yeah, you could put the predator on the billboard, but if we're not prepared to actually see the children, actually see the perversion of children, actually see that the church actually doesn't help, and praying underneath Facebook posts don't help, let that sink in. All the brigades, I used to go brownies, Girl Guides, all of that. The church is who told my grandmother to leave it alone. Turn a blind eye. The neighborhood actually knew. They've been watching. But you know where I was? In a bubble. I was in a bubble protecting myself because the adults failed me. And then they look at you and they say, oh, she acted that way because, yes, my entire life was influenced by what they did to me. And my mother going around the place telling everybody I wanted her man and who set up this and who set up that. And again, I come from a good family. So sometimes it's not as black and white as we think it is. Sometimes it's not something that we can just put a Band-Aid over. Shit, sometimes we can't even do surgery. It's about the child. It's about reaching the children on their level. It's about letting children be children. It's about stop saying that they're bad children. They're just children. And until we adults can go back to our childlike self and remember what it's like to be children, to then ask ourselves what it is that a child really needs, then we are all lost. And this is all just a joke. And we're in our cute little outfits today with our nice little mics and our nice little ties when you don't really understand children. And until we can understand it, it has nothing to do with church and truly God, who God really is, who Jesus Christ really is, if we want to go to the church. How did Jesus deal with the children? How are you willing to deal with the children? Not from a Bible, but as a human. When we go back to love, true love, then you will all figure out how it is that you can reach me. And I'm 36 years old, guys. I got away from them when I was 20, but I never actually healed until I was 35. Let that sink in. There's so many people that are 50-something that's still holding on to that shit, and they can't even say it. But I'm brave enough, and I know I'm here for, which I'm glad Angelica called me, I'm here for this specific reason. You need to tap into your child's self to ask what a child really needs. Not just getting a little rice, a little snacks, but really, children are just children. They want to play, they want to have fun, they just want to be children. And an adult comes in and ruins it for them. And as soon as that happens, there's a darkness that they cannot run from for the rest of their lives. And I just wanted to give you all a scope of what it really is like to be a victim living. And of course, what the young lady said about being 18 and you put them into the world. How much of y'all come from a good family still struggling? Now put pain and stress and trauma, PTSD, some people have disabilities on top of all of that, and you still have to go and work and feed yourself. And then you have children because you probably end up living with a man, and then all of that because you're surviving for the rest of your life. So take with that whatever you want to do with that. I hope that helped. I hope I made sense. And this is not easy. It's never easy to come on the mic, but I know that's my purpose when I was 15 and I was about to kill myself. So this is why I'm here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashanti. I want to give Ashanti another round of applause because this takes real bravery. There's one young lady over here in purple. Says she had a list of recommendations. She's going to run through the recommendations, and she's asking the panel to please listen. She said that if you guys, she's not seen any pen or paper. I told her that you guys have your phones, and that's where we're taking the notes.
All right, thank you very much. I heard the presentations of each of you, and what I hear is a lack of resources. And we have a lot of frameworks that exist. We have laws with many provisions that exist. What these laws lack are the resources to ensure that they function. And so I do believe that our laws make provisions for safe houses and foster homes. Where does it exist in Antigua, and how? And because it is lacking in the system that was described here. So we need to address the lack of safe houses, the lack of a government-owned foster home. Realize that there are homes existing in Antigua and Barbuda. They're overwhelmed. They are filled to capacity, and very often when a child needs to be placed there, there's no space. And so we need to address that safe house quickly. We hear that the staff are overwhelmed. The ratio is too high. The staffing ratio is too high for the number of cases that they are handling, and there needs to be a serious resource injection, not only to your ministries, but to all the ministries that are represented here on this panel. There's a serious personnel shortage that needs to be addressed, because if they're going to be handling what we are asking of them, they need the personnel to do it. We underscore the need for security of these persons who are handling these cases, and whether it be the police themselves who are doing it, or security personnel who are trained by the police, who are permanently attached to these units to work alongside them and accompany them and be with them all the time when they're handling these cases. That needs to be a serious consideration. Overall, we see that the sectors are overwhelmed. I see overwhelmed sectors, and people who are just trying to fill gaps that they're stretched thin. They cannot continue to fill them like this. Just to touch on the legal parameters that I hope will be taken to Parliament for discussion, we need to look at the repercussions for parents who are found to be protecting perpetrators. What do we do with them? What are the repercussions for people who are found to facilitate child prostitution? We about it. Yes, there should be something on the books, but really, let's be practical. Repercussions for persons who seek to intimidate safety workers, persons who seek to intimidate victims. Yes, we recognize that these things should exist, but how are we addressing them practically? What are our repercussions for parents who fail to meet requirements? And here I'm talking about the Child Justice Act. The Child Justice Act addresses how children fail, what happens to children when they fail to meet requirements, but what happens to the parents who fail to facilitate children to meet these requirements. We really need to address all of that. We need to look at professional development for persons who are working with children, because we realize that they are very often operating beyond their scope, and they need to be addressed. I do underscore what this teacher Brown would have said. And on a procedural measure, we do need to streamline our reporting pathways, not only within our systems, but from the public into the system, educate persons, the general public, on how to identify and how they what they can anticipate in these reporting procedures, not just when they reach, okay, you like this next, but general national education campaign.
All right, thank you so very much. We have another quick recommendation.
Hello. Good night. So I came here to basically learn. I came with a level of naivety, level of lots of ignorance, because I'm 21 and I'm now transitioning into an adult. As a teenager, when you hear certain stories, you trust adults. You say, I'm going to go tell XYZ person missed that, or whatever. And nothing happens. Nothing happens. And then now that I'm now an adult, I don't know what to do. When people come and tell me things, I don't know what to do. And especially with listening to Miss Brown, I'm not trained, but people are coming to me. And then the mother who shared her story, she made me remember that I did something like that a time when I was 15 with my friend, tried to set up somebody because they were stalking her. They've had so many stories like that. I had a friend who was being raped by her cousin, and when I wanted to report it on behalf of her, she threatened me that if I told anybody, that she would stop being my friend and stop talking to me. So as a teenager, what do you do in that sense? And then now that I'm an adult, what do? I don't know what to do. And then the lady there said, she said that she thinks that this is happening because of a lack of resources. But I was going to say too that the panel is showing a lot of frustration. But these are the people that, you know, you would expect to be fixing the problem, whatever. And it made me realize that it's not really a lack of resources, it's a lack of cooperation. Because you're basically saying that people are pepper spraying you, people are attacking you, people are hurting you, people that are trying to report on whatever. There's no cooperation. So they're basically up there begging you to cooperate with them. And then I was even wondering too if there were certain things that the victim, the survivor, said that, that I feel like would have went over a certain person's head. After she was taken from the home, how did the father gain access to her again in order to manipulate her? And then she recanted her story, and nobody said, wait there. Nobody was doing that. And then I'm going to go back to, I don't know who it was. I don't think I was here when it was, I think I was watching the live stream, when they were saying the police, they're the first responders. And, pardon me? Oh, sorry. You know, a lot of these things, if they're calling 911 on these things, or, you know, they're the first responders, there's no empathy. Because what do you mean you're telling her, let the police do their job? After XYZ years, you're letting them do their job, and the job is not done. And then I know certain stories to where persons are, you know, this just to go over into what I know, domestic abuse. The police are coming and say, oh, this house again? Where's the empathy? So if these are the adults, these are the people that you're supposed to be reporting to, and they're not doing anything, maybe that is why nothing is being done, because obviously there's some frustration up there, and that's why the lady asked. There's no cooperation. It's not working there, because it's not even like you can call the police. You have to call that certain individual for help because you trust that person, but you don't trust an actual police. And a child as well, you know, it's a child protection town hall meeting. If it's a burglary, we know to call 911. If it's a fire, the child knows to call 911. If it's somebody dropped down sick, the child knows to call 911. But if I'm being touched, who do I call? Who do I call? I don't trust anybody for that. I know a fire truck will come. I know a police will come with their gun. But if I'm being touched, if daddy touched me, who am I going to call? So I was mostly saying these things too because I know it's being recorded. And as a young person, I know a lot of people will take that clip and share it around, because those are the things I want people to think about. And I want everybody here too, these clips, I want y'all to share it around, because there's so many chairs and they're empty. And two, why is the sexual registry, why is the predator registry, why is that not being, because everybody in here knows at least 2 predators. I'm sure I can call out 5. Everybody in here knows one. We already know them. So what is the delay in having that being published? What is the delay? Everybody up there is nodding their head. Y'all are the guys. Everybody up there is nodding their head. So I want to know really and truly, what is the delay?
All right, thank you very much. Okay, we have to wrap up shortly. A recommendation, a quick quick recommendation. We're talking about recommendation, quick recommendation, and then our Minister of Health had an intervention, and then we have to, and one more from over there, just to be fair, then we have to work on wrapping up.
Good night, everyone. Good night, everyone. I'm really happy for the opportunity to be part of this discussion tonight. And I have heard most of the panelists and heard the questions and recommendations posed by the members of the audience. I heard that it is cultural, and it is, a lot of it is that. But some of it is also spiritual. And I want to just make mention of something to show how it goes deep. As a young woman was abused, was molested. As an adult, she lived in a relationship of abuse. The person who abused her tried to kill her. The matter was taken to court. However, the conversations happened again. She dropped the charges, embraced the person. The person got an opportunity another time and destroyed her forever. I'm saying all of that because, and all of us, a lot of us would probably say, well, why she did that? And that could never be me. Not understanding the deep-seated self-esteem issues that this person would have gone through. And I'm saying all of that because a lot of the young girls that have been abused have had esteem issues. Even if they didn't have it before, they certainly develop it because of what has happened. My recommendation, therefore, is for this training, teaching of who I am, beautiful, fearfully, wonderfully made, to be part of the school's curriculum. So that when they go to school, it's not just a part of church. They understand, because a lot of them, some of them do not go to church, and they do not visit groups and organizations where they can learn some of this. So some of it has to be taught in the school. And the discussion where they know that they are valued and nobody should touch them, and all of these discussions, what should happen if somebody touches them, this has to be part of a regular daily discussion in the children's lives, so that they are not intimidated by any adult who wants to say anything to them. They understand that they can say, I have been touched, and it is not a stigma. And so I want to recommend, part of our education policy, that this training becomes part of our school's curriculum.
All right, thank you very much. We actually have a time limit here. Minister Turner, the general public is asking for a part 2. That this cannot be a one-off town hall because there are many, many, many questions.
This was never intended to be a one-off town hall. What we wanted to do was to start the discussion and then move into various communities for smaller, more intimate town halls that we can attempt to reach persons on a one-on-one basis. So we'll be rolling out more town hall meetings across different villages in the community. I mean, what I want to say in closing, and I consider myself to be a very straightforward individual. I am getting the sense, and based on some of the response that we're having here tonight, and whether you agree with me or not, this is my truth. Government can't do it. The police can't do it. My director here can't do it alone. It must start in the home. The mother and the father, that's where it starts. That's why we're here tonight, to plead to the parents to look out for your child, to listen to your child, to protect your child. Your child is no longer safe with the uncle sorry to say, in some instances, your child is no longer safe alone with daddy. I'm sorry we have to say it, with auntie, with your nephew, with your niece. It starts in the home. We need you to help us to help the children. We can put all the policies we want in place. We can write all the manuals, all the procedures. We can change all the laws we want to change. Because in fact, for someone who sexually abuses a child in Antigua and Barbuda under the age of 14, the maximum sentencing on the book is life in prison. When last have you heard anyone being sentenced to life in prison? When last have you heard it? I have never heard a situation. The fact is, there are some bottlenecks. The director, working with the hospital, working with the educators, working with the counselors, working with the police. For me, there's a bottleneck. Because we can do all this work. We can coordinate. We can gather the evidence. But when it gets to the finish line, and it is being blocked from a score, from a goal, from someone or a part of the system that's supposed to be contributing to that success. My counselors, my director, they're going to be burnt out. You know why? Because they're doing their part. We all have part to play, but we're not getting it over the finish line. And then we recognize we can't get it, we're not getting over the finish line, so we're appealing to the parents to be more visible, to be more vigilant. I'm actually disappointed with the turnout of this town hall meeting. And I am not afraid to say it. Because we're in a crisis in this country where our children are concerned. And we have a lot of people who like to type eloquently on social media about what needs to be done and who's not doing their work. We have a lot of social media warriors for children. But when time comes to stand up, to offer your contribution, to speak your truth, I mean, I'm so happy for the two victims, the two survivors who have shared their story tonight. Because I have never heard a victim, a survivor, someone who have experienced that type of trauma be willing to stand up in a setting like this, to speak their truth on camera. And I'm asking for permission to use your story to help other people. Because we need that message to be said out there. And before I pass over to my colleague minister, I'm appealing again to the parents. I'm appealing to the village. You once, at one point in time, you raised a child. I know because you raised me. My mother was a single mother. I never knew my father at all. I was raised in a single family household. But I had neighbors. I had Mama across the road, God rest her soul. I have my neighbor on the west, Velma, God rest her soul. I had a bunch of people. I mean, my mom went to work and she left us home. But the minute you step outside, where you go? There was a sense of looking out for one another as a community. That sense of looking out for one another is gone. And a big contributing factor to what we're seeing here, we have a lot of children raising children. So there's no adult. Nobody goes to church anymore. Before, whether you wanted to go to church or not, Sunday, Saturday, you're in Sunday school. I mean, you used to hate it. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes you used to hate it, but you had to go. So that moral, that spiritual aspect is all gone. I don't know what the churches can do. I don't know what the plans of the churches, but we need that. We need you to reach out back into our communities. We need to take the church out of the building and take the church into the community. Because we need the help. We need the help. The village needs to wake up. We've fallen asleep. We can't allow our country. One person who contributed tonight said, it's not Antigua alone. And they're correct, sadly. I've been doing some research and I've looked at other cases in the region. I mean, it's right across the Caribbean. It's like an epidemic, a pandemic. What? Something's wrong with us as a society. We're going to be rolling out series of town halls, smaller town halls, different villages, different communities, with the hope that we reach more people. If we save one child, we would have made a difference. So for me, I want to say thank you to everyone who turned out tonight. Thank you for the team. Thank you to my director, to the panel, the hard-working staff within Family and Social Services, to the police. I am pleading with the police, the High Command and the police officers. We need to see a more proactive stance when it comes to our children. We need to stop this brush-off attitude and this protective attitude. Because, you know, they say, 1,000, a million Chinese man can't lie. There's something wrong. We just have to accept that truth. Let us all try to do better. I mean, the future of this country, our children, the children of the future. And if you want to live a peaceful life in this country, we have to look out for children now. Minister.
Thank you so very much. I now invite Minister Johnson, Kiss Johnson. She is the Junior Minister, Minister of State within the Ministry of Social and Urban Transformation with direct responsibilities for gender, youth affairs, and of course, family services.
It's off now. Touch it again. It's on.
Ministers Rawdon Turner and Michael Joseph, senators, members of the distinguished panel, representatives of our various agencies and institutions, parents, guardians, young people, members of our communities, esteemed ladies and gentlemen, good evening. The task is mine to bring the curtains down on what can be categorized as a powerful, candid, and insightful discourse. The conversation this evening provoked emotions of perhaps discomfort, anger, and even sadness. But nonetheless, we had them either way, and the world will now know that we aren't sweeping this important and crucial matter under the rug or hiding behind a curtain. This is the reality, and we are confronting it. Tonight, you have heard from a deliberately assembled panel of professionals from government, psychology, social work, law enforcement, education, health, and the justice system. And even more, which I found profound, from the voices of our two survivors who have lived through the very same experience of abuse. One of the important messages emerging from this evening is that no single institution, and I'm going to repeat that, no single institution can protect our children on its own. Not the ministry, not family and social services, and in the words of our director, it's not just us, not the police, not our schools, not our healthcare system, not the courts, and certainly not families and communities acting in isolation. There must be a chain of protection, around every child, and every link in that chain must work. Do you agree? Yes. Tonight, therefore, cannot simply become another successful event at which important people just say important things. The real measure of this town hall comes afterwards. You agree? It will be measured when a teacher knows precisely what to do when she suspects a child is being harmed. It will be measured when an agency receives a report and the response is timely and coordinated. It will be measured when a frightened parent knows where to turn. It will be measured when professionals across education, healthcare, law enforcement, social services, and the justice system communicate instead of operating in spaces. And ultimately, it will be measured by whether a child, such as the young lady, the survivor, who we heard on the call, who was abused by her very own father from the age of 6, it will be measured by whether a child such as her needs protection and actually receives it. That must be our standard. To the people of Antigua and Barbuda, under the sound of my voice, I want to leave one request. Pay attention. Pay attention to the children around you. Listen not only to what they say, but sometimes to what they stop saying. Notice changes. Ask questions. Seek help when you are uncertain. And never assume that someone else will act. There is a phrase that has guided us throughout this evening. Every child, Minister Turner has been saying this, every child in every community deserves safety. Every child. On behalf of the Ministry of Social and Urban Transformation, I thank our moderator, our distinguished panelists, everyone who contributed to this national conversation, and every person who came because you believe that the protection of our children actually matters. May tonight not be remembered simply as the night we talked about protecting our children. However, may it be remembered as a night when Antigua and Barbuda, that's you, that's me, all of us in this room, those on the live, and those in our society. May tonight be remembered as a night when we decide to do better for our children. Thank you for coming out to this town hall meeting and for sharing openly. Please stay tuned for the series of meetings across our communities. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Listen out for more details for other town hall meetings, and please do get home safely.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Good night. Minister Turner, Mr. Michael.